We have already seen at least 5 games from your favorite team so far this NBA season. So today is simple. I'm going to go through some of the bigger teams, some of the teams that are in question. Am I buying or selling the start to their NBA season? If you enjoy, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell a friend to tell a friend because we're this close to 18,000 subscribers. Let's kick it off here with my hometown team. I had to do it. I don't like to talk about my hometown teams much, but let me at least, I guess, be delusional here about the start to my team's start to the season. That's a lot of starts there, but stick with me. The Cleveland Cavaliers are 7-0, ladies and gentlemen. They are the top 2 offense, top 4 defense. They've had big wins over the Knicks, Lakers, and an incredible comeback and game-winning shot victory over the Milwaukee Bucks the other night. This is a team that is shooting incredibly from the field, and we are missing one of our best shooters in Max Strus at the moment. Kenny Atkinson is smart with his rotations. He is getting the most out of these younger stars like Evan Mobley and Darius Garland. Jarrett Allen and Donovan Mitchell are playing at all NBA, I guess, levels at this point in time, as crazy as that sounds. Now, again, only 7 games in. I don't want to overreact too much. We need to go out there, and we still need to add another 6'7", 6'8" wing. A lengthy wing defender is what I'm saying here. You know, someone that, again, if we get Jeremy Grant for cheap, that is a long shot. I understand that, but someone of that mold, then I think maybe we could be a super NBA contender. But as of right now, everything is going so well, and we're missing one of our starters. I'm buying the stock into this team. Even more so as a hometown fan, the Cavaliers are legit. But let's talk about a team that, well, not much is going well or in their favor this so far this NBA season. The Milwaukee Bucks. They're 1-5 and they're struggling ultimately. They won opening night against the Philadelphia 76ers. Ever since then, 5 straight losses. You've had some games where Giannis is the, I guess, guy that carries the offensive load and Dame struggles. And then you've had nights where it's flip-flop. And then you have nights against the Cavaliers where both of those guys dominate as far as statistically, and you still can't get the job done. I don't know if it's Doc Rivers. I think we all know it's kind of, hey, the roster around those guys because they don't have enough to compete for an NBA title. So I was already not high on this team coming into the season, but with what we've seen, it's hard to get excited about this team unless they make some moves throughout the season. So as of right now, I'm selling any other stock that I had on this team before the season. The Denver Nuggets are another team that, well, you know, it was kind of wishy-washy. Some people had them winning the NBA Finals before the season, and some people had them just being a good, just not great team like myself before the NBA season. We've worried about their depth, of course. We know the starting 5 is great. We know when Jamal Murray has it going, this team is kind of unbeatable with the pick and roll of Jokic and Jamal Murray. But it's been very inconsistent this year. Outside of Jokic, no shocker, right? I think their second most consistent player has been Christian Braun so far this NBA season, but 3-3 on the year. Numbers not that great. They're not shooting the ball great, which of course is a detriment when you have a guy like Jokic that demands so much attention and double teams that he needs to kick it out to these guys that consistently knock it down, but they're not even attempting the most shots from 3 in the league. They're 29th in that category. But I will say they had incredible wins against the Nets and the Toronto Raptors. The only reason that they're notable wins, they were back-to-back nights in overtime where, again, it looked like they weren't going to win those games. So the Denver Nuggets got big wins there, but they've lost against any credible opponent, playoff-level team so far this year. The Nuggets, a lot of questions. I worry about Jamal Murray, but I will say this, and I'm going to make an exception to the rule. Because you have Nikola Jokic, I'm going to hold my stock for now. But next week, when we talk about contenders and pretenders, I'm going to revisit this conversation. For the Golden State Warriors, I mean, you lose Steph Curry and you tell me you're 5-1. I call you delusional, of course, here as we sit today. But they beat the New Orleans Pelicans twice this year. They beat the Houston Rockets in a big-time game there. Their only loss came against the LA Clippers. Again, that was when Norman Powell, I believe, went crazy. Regardless, top 5 offense, top 5 defense. The only other team that could say that is the Cleveland Cavaliers. So again, reminiscent of those mid-2010s. But they're shooting the ball incredibly. Again, without Stephen Curry and without Klay Thompson for what that matters. But Steve Kerr has been amazing this year. The rotations have been good. AirPods, Kuminga, Draymond Green is playing at a defensive player of the year level. This team is fun to watch despite no Steph Curry. If you're playing this well without him, When one of the best leaders in the NBA comes back, when the greatest shooter that God's ever created comes back into the mix, look, this team is going to be a playoff team at this point in time. And the Golden State Warriors, I'm buying stock into this team. The Chicago Bulls, I want to talk about them because they are 3-3. They have the second worst offense, which doesn't really make sense, right? But they have a top 10 defense. So top 10 defense is an incredible jump this year from last couple of years. And it's awesome to see. So again, after losing Alex Caruso, you're still a top 10 defense. After a 6-game stretch, so shout out to the young players of the Chicago Bulls. But this year, this is why it doesn't make sense. An offensive rating doesn't always make sense. They have the second worst offense, but they are first in pace. They are top 5 in 3 points attempted and made, and of course, 7th in 3-point percentage. So you would think now, in such a dominated 3-point shooting league and era, you would think that they'd be a decent offense as far as an offensive rating, but they're not, despite having great shooting numbers and pace. Regardless, they've had big wins over the Bucks and Grizzlies so far. They have lost to the Nets and Magic. Now, again, the Nets are a pretty bad loss, but the Magic, that you couldn't do much about that, right? That was when Paolo kind of went crazy. Regardless, the Chicago Bulls, Josh Giddey has been amazing. I mean, this dude has been rebounding the ball at a crazy level. I'd have to check it, but he might be their leading rebounder. Zach LaVine has come back to form. He is now going to warrant a first or maybe multiple firsts at the trade deadline or even after the season in a signing trade kind of a deal. But Zach LaVine's been good. Vucevic has been good. A lot of these veterans, if they decide to move them, are now going to warrant, I guess, higher draft capital than we thought. Patrick Williams has been okay. It's been good to see Lonzo back on the court. This team is young. They're fun. They're entertaining. But I'm going to be selling my stock in here because I think this stock for the Chicago Bulls right now is incredibly high. I think right now they look like a playoff team. I don't think they get there when 82 games are said and done. So I'm going to sell my stock now high on the Chicago Bulls. Another 3-3 team where, well, it's not very exciting at the moment in the Sacramento Kings, where the 3-3, they've lost some games they shouldn't have against teams like the LA Lakers, of course, where LeBron went crazy in the fourth quarter. And the Timberwolves, they were in that game at the start. They shouldn't have really lost the game, but it kind of all just went downhill and rather quickly. But they did beat the Hawks, and that's one of the notable wins I'll give them so far this year, where Trae Young almost brought them back, right, in that second half. But they're almost a top 10 offense and defense so far this year. 3-point numbers are not great, but we knew that when you have guys like Sabonis, Fox, and DeMar that really are working inside the perimeter rather than outside. But what I said about this team before the season was that you needed De'Aaron Fox to become that lethal outside shooter. You needed him to go from 36% for his career to 40% this season so that it can open up the offense for guys like Sabonis and DeMar DeRozan, whether if they're doing DHOs or off-ball movement. You needed to have that secondary outside shooter outside of Keegan Murray to really open up this offense and make you a contender. Now, I will say, I believe in Mike Brown. And then outside of the fact that the rotations for this team have been very weird so far to start the year, it's growing pains. They're trying to figure things out. I believe in the Sacramento Kings team. I'm buying stock at the moment when it's probably a little bit lower than we thought it would be so far this year. I think they're a playoff team, and I think they're going to be a headache for any team in the first round of the playoffs. For the Phoenix Suns, they are the number 2 seed at this point in time of the recording in the Western Conference. You're 5-1. Offense is about middle of the pack, but top 5 defense, and that is the Mike Budenholzer effect. But now, even with a lot of these players like Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, guys that aren't necessarily known for defense, Tyus Jones as well, you're playing defense at a very high level so far this year. And not only that, you're shooting the 3 at a very high clip. You're top 10 as far as your attempts, but you're top 6 in makes and percentages, which you have to expect that with all the snipers and sharpshooters that this Phoenix Suns team has. I think, again, with the notable wins over both LA teams, you beat the Dallas Mavericks handily. Now, you did lose to the Lakers, of course, on the second night of the season, but that was because LeBron James he decided to turn back the clock. But for this Phoenix Suns team, you're playing defense high, you're shooting a lot of threes, and that is the recipe to a great team in 2024. And I mean, hey, when this team is struggling and when they are in droughts going throughout the season, they have the guys to take them over the top. They have those killers, so to speak, in Booker, Beal, and Durant. And I mean, hey, this team finally has a true point guard. All their holes are fixed. I'm going to say we're going to buy in stock here in the Phoenix Suns, even though it's probably extremely high at the moment. For the New York Knicks, look, you bring in Karl-Anthony Towns, you bring in Mikal Bridges. It has been a okay start to the season for you, but with those big additions, you're going to have to expect some growing pains, some adjustment period time. Now, this is a team that is 3-2, top three offense, right? Middle of the pack defense, but you know, with Tom Thibodeau, that will get back in the right direction. My only worry about this team here is their pace. Now, as far as the postseason, that's a great pace. You want to slow it down. You want to play at your own pace and, of course, get the best possible shots. But sometimes they're a little bit too one-dimensional at this point in time as far as how their offense operates, and that worries me a little bit. And again, three-point attempts, they're not shooting a lot of threes with the departure of Dante DiVincenzo. Overall, again, they have plenty of time to turn it around. There's growing pains that are needed to be expected. But when you have big losses like to the Boston Celtics night one, now I'll give them a pass because Boston had everything going in that night. You can't really doubt the Knicks for that loss. Any team on America would have lost to the Celtics on opening night. But the Cavaliers, that's a big time loss. You were up double digits in the second half. You looked like you had control, but just like that, the Cavaliers came back and they got a win that they probably shouldn't have against the New York Knicks. I will say you beat the Miami Heat. That was a quality win. But outside of that, there's a lot of questions around this team as far as their three-point shooting. Even though they're first, they're attempting almost the bottom 5 in the league. So if they could just attempt more, it seems like they'd be an elite three-point shooting team. But again, growing pains at the moment. I will say this. Put the stock question, or I guess hypothetical, out of the window. I'm going to sell the start to the season for the New York Knicks for this reason. They're going to be a way better team. I think they're still a top 5 level team in the NBA, even though that's in question. If not, they're a top 10 level team despite all these growing pains to start the NBA year. So I'm going to sell the fact that this is not the team that we're going to see come April. This is a team that's going to be, this is the worst I think the Knicks will be all season. But that was, of course, buying or selling the start of some of the notable questionable teams to start this NBA season. If you want me to talk about your team in the comments that I didn't mention, let me know. I'll get back to you as quick as I possibly can. I love talking to you guys in the comments. Now, I will say this. Fantasy football content twice a week. Of course, Monday, Wednesday, you guys know that. Thursday, we're going to have an interesting Week 10 slate of NFL games. So tune in for that. But we do a little bit of everything on this channel if you made it to this point. Of course, we're approaching 18,000 subscribers. We love when you guys interact with us in the comments. We'll get back to you as quick as we can. But until next week for NBA action, go enjoy some NBA basketball, and I'll talk to you guys in the comments along the way.